I see a slight parallel in terms of just everything feels rushed and nothing, very rarely does stuff get to where it should go. I'm not going to say never because sometimes it does. Again, the big man stuff I think is playing out very well. But WCW went out of business because TBS and TNT just didn't want to have it on their stations anymore. As soon as Ted Turner sold out TBS and he was no longer the guardian angel of wrestling, which he was for many years on TBS and TNT, then all it took would be one guy who just hated wrestling to get it off the network, and that guy was named Jamie Kellner. Now, obviously it would have been harder to do were WCW not hemorrhaging money and where the ratings not dropping, but nonetheless, it was still, the most watched program, if memory serves, on TNT at the time Nitro folded. They just didn't want wrestling on their TV anymore.
And with WCW, I was a big WCW fan. Obviously, you were the voice of WCW or part of.
I was a big fan of getting paid by WCW.
Well, one thing that
really all kidding aside, that's the promotion I grew up preferring, despite being in a WWE stronghold here in Pittsburgh. TBS Saturday Night was and remains my favorite wrestling show ever because everything's better when you're a kid, and that was right in my wheelhouse. That's what I did, at the end of the afternoon every Saturday, turned on TBS Saturday Night.
But with you, I can't help but think, since we're a podcast and we do the this internet show, I can't help but thinking, guys like Colt Cabana say they're the godfather of the podcast and things like that. But if you really think about it, when you were doing WCW Live and you kind of were doing the first internet talk show, you guys were kind of doing the first.
Oh no question.
If you will.
Well, it wasn't a podcast; it was live. My memory fails. I'm not sure if you could access it, later after the initial broadcast. But nobody has ever done a podcast or a internet show to equal WCW Live. You had first-hand access to the creative people like Russo and Bischoff, Ed Ferrara, and so forth. You had the stars of the promotion were on a regular basis, not just the guys who wandered backstage because they didn't have a match on Nitro because they weren't very highly regarded. And you had me, to blow my own horn, toot toot, I, at the time, and still am, a professional radio announcer. So when I was on, I was the glue that kind of held it together and steered it to where it wanted to go. And now, when you have these other, podcasts and so forth, you don't have professional radio guys. You have professional wrestling guys who might have been great at cutting 90-second promos, but it's not the same when you're talking on a show like this one. You got to be able to have that stream of consciousness rant that adds up, is interesting, and makes sense. And in my case, in Pittsburgh here, it has to go on for 3 hours. WCW Live would go on for 1 or 2 hours, as I recall, and we did it every night. I wasn't on every night, but the show went out every night. So WCW Live, I think, was a pioneer, and no one has yet to match it.
You guys were somewhat of, obviously, originators and innovators at that point, but did any of the guys have any problem with you guys if you were breaking kayfabe or promoting something you weren't supposed to be promoting?
Yeah, sometimes Eric got mad. But, it was checks and balances. It didn't really stop us. It might have, kept us from saying certain things that he didn't want out there. But Eric would get mad, but Eric Bischoff at the same time was the biggest booster of the show. And there were a couple guys named Tom Hunt and Mike Weber who worked in communications for WCW that stood behind it as well. If Eric didn't want to do it, he was certainly on it often enough. Not frequently, but he was on it. So, there were a few instances, but that's what bosses are supposed to do. They're supposed to get mad so people don't go too far over the ledge. But we did that sometimes anyway.